The hypotheses of the myths, do they differ in principle from the hypotheses of science? We think not. There is no real scientist who does not know that the hypotheses with which he needs must work, and which seem thus far infallible in providing explanations for all phenomena in his field, may someday be modified or even utterly destroyed by new discoveries. The Ptolemaic theory is gone, the atomic theory is questioned, but no sane man will for that reason condemn hypotheses in toto. Neither will he despise those who in their day held hypotheses then deemed irrefutable. The connection of mythology with religion is obvious, yet a word of caution is needed here. Mythology is not synonymous with religion, but only a part of it. Religion consists of at least 3 parts. The attitude of soul, which is religion par excellence, the outward act of worship, which is ritual, and the scientific explanation, which, in the very highest and noblest sense of the term, is myth. And these 3, which we may call the attitude of soul, body, and mind, go together to make religion. Throughout our study of mythology, we must bear constantly in mind that we are dealing with only one feature of religion, its causal aspect. We must not take the part for the whole, else we shall be one-sided and unjust in our appreciation of religion as a whole. One attitude of mine is absolutely essential in reading mythology. Sympathy, and almost as important a requisite is that, while reading it, its premises may be granted. If we approach mythology with the preconception that it is false or nonsensical or trivial, it will be but waste of time to read it. Indeed, it will be better never to have read it, for reading in such a spirit will only embitter. It is perhaps not sufficiently recognized how important a factor one's attitude of sympathy is, not merely in regard to religion or psychology or philosophy or any other mental and moral science, but also toward the exact sciences. If, for example, I make up my mind that spectral analysis is utterly impossible, the discovery of a new element in the gaseous emanations of a distant planet by such analysis will be to me nothing but folly. If again I reject the mathematical concept of infinity, which I have never seen and which cannot be weighed or measured, then I shall of course deny that parallel lines meet in infinity. You cannot give me the precise location of infinity, and besides, all parallel lines that I have ever seen are equidistant at all points from each other. This is a reductio ad absurdum of an attitude which is far too common in regard to mythology and religion. This does not, of course, mean that we must implicitly believe all that we read, but it does mean that we should approach with kindly hearts, with reverence then and with love. With reverence then and with love, we take up myths. We may smile at times at their naivete, but we shall never sneer at them. Unblushing sometimes we shall find them, and cruel. But it is the unmodesty and the cruelty of the child. Myths may be moral or unmoral, they are not immoral, and only a morbid mind will see uncleanliness, and only a morbid mind will see uncleanness in them. No attempt has hitherto been made to collect the myths of the entire human race into a single series. Yet this is not so strange as it might appear at first, scattered in many volumes of old and new, and in periodicals of many kinds and languages. It is an impossible task for one man to know all myths, or to master more than one or two specific mythologies, or a few special themes in mythology as a whole. It is quite true that countless volumes have been written on the myths of individual peoples and on special mythic themes, but their assemblage into a single unit has not thus far been accomplished. This is the purpose of the present series of the mythology of all races, and this the reason for its being. Herein it differs from all other collections of mythologies, in that the mythology of each race is not merely given a special volume or half-volume of its own, but since the series is an organic entity, not a chance collection of monographs, the mythology of an individual race is seen to form a coherent part of mythology. Moreover, the mythology of one people will not infrequently be found to cast light upon problems connected with the mythic system of quite another people. Whence an accurate and a thorough understanding of any individual mythology whatever demands an acquaintance with the Whence an accurate and a thorough understanding of any individual mythology whatever demands an acquaintance with the mythic systems of mankind as a whole. On the other hand, by thus taking a broad survey and by considering primarily the simple facts, as presented chiefly by travelers, missionaries, and anthropologists, we may hope to escape some of the peculiar dangers which beset the study of mythology, especially preconceived theories and prejudices, and the risk of taking for aboriginal what is really borrowed and vice versa. We shall advance no special theory of mythology which shall seek to solve each and every problem by one and the same formula. We shall aim to present the facts in the case, and the theories may safely be trusted to take care of themselves, being then wisely built on solid foundations. We have not attempted to make an encyclopedia of mythology, nor have we planned a mere reference book, which would have been in many ways an easier task. We have had constantly in mind not only the technical student, though he too, if the editor's own experience may be any criterion, will learn much, but the more general reader who desires breadth of understanding, and who would know what the childhood of our race has thought of the mysteries of nature and of life, and how it has endeavored to resolve them. We have sought to be scientific in the best sense of the term, but we have also sought to present a book that shall be eminently readable, that shall set forth myths as living entities, and that because each writer knows and loves the mythology of which he treats, will fill the reader with enthusiasm for them. Much of the material here given appears for the first time in the English language, Slavic and Finno-Ugric, Oceanic, Armenian, and African. No survey of American mythology as a whole has hitherto been written, even where, as in Indian, Teutonic, and Semitic, English monographs exist, new points of view are presented, taking our stand on the best modern scholarship. We venture to hope that many current misconceptions of mythology may be brought to an end. Thus, within recent years, the science of Greek mythology has been revolutionized by the discovery of the very simple fact that Homer is not its ultimate authority, that indeed he represents a comparatively late stage in its development. So that we must give full consideration to the non-Homeric myths and see that here, too, there is the same underlying primitive stratum common to all the race of man. This modern scientific treatment of classical mythology has its initial English presentation in our series. Perhaps at first blush we shall seem to lose much both here and elsewhere. We may, perchance, be disappointed when we find that the vaunted wisdom of Egyptians and of Druids was not so very profound. But if we must part with some pretty ideas, we shall find ample compensation in knowing Egyptians and Druids as they were. After all, which do we prefer? A fanciful picture of our friend, or his actual portrait? Mythology may be written in either of two ways, presentation or comparative. In the former, the myths of each people are presented separately. In the latter, some special theme. The deluge legend the afterworld, or the like, is considered as it appears in myth throughout the world. The utmost care has been taken in the choice of collaborators, and it is believed that to scholars their names will be in themselves sufficient to warrant that the volumes will possess distinct scientific value. The ample bibliographies and references appended to the pertinent sections will enhance the technical worth of our series. In addition, we propose to give in our index volume not merely the names and subjects discussed in the various volumes, but also a topical arrangement by which the variant myths and mythic themes of the different peoples upon a given subject may be found readily and accurately. The selection of illustrations will, it is hoped, meet with general favor. It would have been a very easy matter to present fancy pictures or to reproduce paintings of great modern artists. Instead of that, we have deemed it more in harmony with the purpose of the series to choose for each section pictures of the deities or of mythic incidents as delineated by the people who themselves believed in those deities. To proceed immediately to the narration and discussion of these myths of Greece would be much like an attempt to construct a high road without a survey. We must first of all make certain that we know what a myth is, and such an endeavor to give sharp definition to our theme will naturally lead to an investigation of the special conditions which, like soil and weather to a plant, favor the germination and growth of myth. Then, granting that myth has some connection with religion, we must inform ourselves as to the peculiar nature of the religion and the gods of Greece. By such a course, we may perhaps be so fortunate as to reach a point of vantage from which we can gain a clear and comprehensive view of the unique character of the Greek myths. Once this has been gained, a series of pertinent questions will present themselves, and these we shall enumerate and discuss in the proper place and order. What is myth? We wish it were possible to define myth satisfactorily by an epigram, to say with Moret, for instance, that it is animatism grown picturesque. But unhappily, epigram is a definition only for those who know, and this circumstance limits us to the use of cold analysis. For the purpose of ascertaining the elements of myth, let us regard it from the points of view of A, form, B, time, C, subject matter, and D, relation to fact. It is commonly stated that a myth, in order to be a myth, must be cast in narrative form. A little reflection, however, will show that to make this a hard and fast rule is tantamount to rejecting not only the epithets applied to the gods by their worshippers, but also the attributes accorded to them by poet, priest, and artist. This we cannot consistently do, and moreover, no writer on mythology ever does it, in spite of his insistence on literal narrative form. For an epithet as a statement compressed into one word and an attribute as a symbol of a statement are, after all, substantially narratives. The difference under debate is really one of length and not of essential quality. Where can we draw the line? The thunder weapon put into the hand of Zeus by an artist is in kind, then, as much a myth as the whole elaborate tale of Prometheus. The statements of myth have been a direct reference to the past or to the universal present, only so far as the universal present implies the probable continuity of a condition. Have they any reference to the future? Only so far as the universal present implies the probable continuity of a condition. Have they any reference to the future? That Hephaestus limped and that Hermes flew were, to the Greek facts, true all the time. Why the simple present was excluded from the temporal reference of the myths will be clear after we have examined the nature of their subject matter. No reader of myth can have failed to notice that its themes are invariably drawn from the realm of the unverifiable, or at least from that which was incapable of demonstration at the time of the creation of the myth. The war of Troy was fought at so remote a period The War of Troy was fought at so remote a period that none could debate or deny the allegations of myth that a quarrel over a woman was the cause of it, and the impossibility of refutation in this and other like instances was eagerly accepted as a proof of fact. Moreover, why spoil a good story by being too inquisitive and by applying to it the tests of workaday life? Typhon rebelled against Zeus, and Zeus punished him by heaping upon him the great mass of Etna. Since nobody could explain the origin of the volcano from the known experience of mankind, why was it absurd to attribute it to the acts of beings greater than man? Apollo was invisible to the eye of flesh, according to the myths, yet he could both cause and heal the bodily ills of men and could inspire his priestesses to utter prophecies which the ears of men could hear. The sickness and the healing and the prophesying were facts, and none could prove that any other than Apollo was responsible for them. To believe that he actually was responsible fed the fancy, and without fancy there was no zest in life. Zeus and Typhon. Zeus is approaching swiftly from the left and with raised right hand is about to hurl a thunderbolt at a monster with a bearded human head and a winged trunk terminating in two long serpent-like coils. The creature, probably Typhon, looks at the king of the gods in great alarm and madly lashes about with his scaly body in a vain endeavor to escape from the doom awaiting him. From a Chalkidian Hydria of about 650 BC. In Munich, the Medusa beheaded. The unique feature of this vase painting is that it represents the three Gorgons after the flight of Perseus. With Medusa's head, the two immortal sisters are apparently just setting out in pursuit of the slayer, as their spread wings, bent knees, and swinging hands vividly indicate. The body of Medusa is about to fall inertly to the ground from a black-figured Skyphos of the late 6th century BC in Athens. The souls of the departed were said to be gathered together in a dark realm beneath the earth. For to what other place could they have disappeared after burial or cremation? No god or hero was represented by a myth maker as initiating any movement simultaneous with the narration of the myth. The reason for this is now obvious. Such a statement would be so open to the scrutiny of contemporaries that criticism and the fear of criticism would destroy the illusion and the charm which the story might otherwise possess. The most generally recognized characteristic of myth is the fact that it is a product of the imagination, and so popularly, though erroneously, the mythical is regarded as the exact equivalent of the imaginary. Nevertheless, since the special function of the imagination is to create, it is not to be expected that all its creations must conform to the attested experience of mankind or to what we may estimate as probable. It is for this reason that most of the details of the myths relate to the improbable, but the probable and improbable alike were held to be true by the people among whom the legends had currency. We may now sum up the results of our analysis with a working definition. A myth is a statement or a virtual statement as implied in a symbol, an attribute or an epithet. A myth is a statement or a virtual statement as implied in a symbol, an attribute or an epithet, accepted as true by its original maker and his hearers, and referring to the eternal nature and past acts of beings greater than man, and frequently to circumstances which are to us improbable or impossible.